all of this is like, I think, an argument for basically changing our asylum laws, and I have not seen anything from Trump suggesting he wants to do that. The only thing I've seen from Trump is saying that he will completely shut down the border and build a wall. I don't think there's any real policy proposals there. He's the one that shot down the immigration bill in the Senate. That was by no means perfect, but it would have at least done something.
Yeah. Wasn't that one of the Trump policies, that the insulin cap?
So
Didn't he cap that shit off?
Trump had a voluntary program for only Class D Medicare recipients. The Biden policy was not voluntary, and it was for all people on Medicare, not just Class D Medicare recipients.
The U.S. dollar's not gonna stay up for long unless we like actually back it by something instead of like debt, you know.
Well, I mean, again, the first thing I'm going to mention is having the U.S. dollar be strong isn't always a good thing. I think even Trump wants to depreciate the dollar because that helps brings American manufacturing back. The U.S. dollar being strong really means the U.S. dollar is expensive for other currencies to buy. That means other currencies have a hard time buying our exports. So there can be positive trade-offs to printing money usually. Have you ever heard of the term paradox of thrift?
Oh, what's that?
So when inflation goes down, it just means the rate at which the prices are increasing goes down. It doesn't mean the prices themselves go down.
Yeah, I get that, but it's still rising.
Cumulative inflation has risen. Yes, it has not gone down. We probably don't want it to go down.
Yeah, but inflation itself, it's still not at zero.
We probably don't want inflation to be at zero.
Why not?
Okay, I guess do you have like a link to the actual court ruling? I've been trying to find the court ruling, and I cannot seem to find it. I just have links to articles talking about it. I'm sure
I can look it up, but it's I doubt it's gonna be like straightforward thing since it's like 30 cases. They're all probably gonna be individual court ruling things, you know.
Well, but I think there was one court ruling that found that her office had violated multiple defendants' rights. It was the court ruling over the lab tech thing where they said, you can't be fucking doing this shit.
Did you look through all of the article? Was it not in there somewhere?
Well, it quotes the ruling. I'm just trying to find the actual ruling because what this says is Harris's office violated defendants' rights. It doesn't say Harris herself knew, and I'm assuming the ruling would go into whether Harris knew or not. Now, she has since denied knowing. She could very well just be covering her ass there, which is why I want to see the...
Yeah. That's like one thing I'm like a little iffy about. Man, you know, I thought at the bottom they would have like references where they got all their shit, but...
Yeah, you would think, but I don't know why news articles don't fucking do that anymore. But...
I know, dude. It's fucking trash, dude. Like, come on. Give me the shit. Give me the evidence.
Right, they have hyperlinks here, and like I click them, and I'm like expecting to be linked to the ruling, but instead it just goes to like their own website with like a search for superior court, and it's like, why the hell would I ever even want to do that?
You know, I could look it up later at some point. I came here to have a discussion about because I don't want a bunch of dead air, you know. Dead air is bad.
Well, I was just curious if you had like a thing of that. I mean,
I didn't have the source. I didn't have like the original source, but yeah, I guess everyone just pulls up the news articles nowadays.
Yeah.
Nobody goes like to the source of it.
Well, I just don't know. Either she, I'm just saying it's possible that she, from what I've read, that she didn't know because she did, basically, there was a memo written in 2005 saying, hey, we should implement something called the Brady Doctrine, which would have prevented this from happening. And she ignored it. She didn't implement it. But then after the scandal broke and became public, then she did implement that rule and dismissed, like you said, like 1,000 cases because of it. So,
yeah,
I guess that there's two ways of looking at that. Obviously, either she didn't know, she didn't think it would be a problem, or she did know, and then once it became public that it was a problem, then retroactively did she implement the rule.
Yeah. Honestly, like, if she did know, dude, that's a terrifying thing, though. Like, being in jail for like nothing. For like being an innocent man in jail, dude, that sounds horrifying. Like I wouldn't know. I've only
Yeah.
been to jail for shit I've done, but like, yeah, I could only imagine like the horror. You know, you get like honestly like the court system, it really fucks up your life. Like
Yeah.
you know, we need some changes to that shit for sure.
Yeah. I feel like well, I feel like Kamala Harris would probably be by now more in favor of criminal justice reform than Trump would be. I think Trump did sign the First Step Act or whatever, but which I think had some prison reform things in it. But like Biden also, for example, pardoned a lot of marijuana offenses. Like,
Oh yeah, no, like that's definitely a good thing, dude. Like I feel like for non-violent, like especially marijuana offenders, like honestly, if they're all like non-violent, any drug offenses, like let them out, dude. Let them loose.
yeah,
Like I don't know, like all that shit seems like a waste of. Well, first off and foremost, it seems like a bad thing to do to someone, you know. Like I don't know, unless they're like really fucked up, like a those people with their like. Have you seen the videos of like the people with like their bones and shit exposed or like their skull like exposed because they like inject the drugs into like their
oh,
like under their skin?
sure,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, like I don't know, those guys get them help. Like don't fucking give them consent. Grab them off the street, throw them in like a rehab or something, and you know get them help. But like if you're just a dude that like got some ecstasy or like got some like weed or some shit, like yeah, you shouldn't
yeah.
be fucking. You shouldn't get fucked in the ass for
We did
like
see
with
for the
that.
first time, we did see a little bit of a drop in overdose deaths recently. Actually, I think we saw like a 10,000 drop in the number of like monthly overdose deaths, which is good. We don't really know what caused it, but
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's like enough people that like bought the drugs. The fentanyl finally got them. You know,
you know
the fentanyl finally got
yeah,
them.
a theory actually is like there's only a certain number of people that will do drugs, and like so many of those people have already died that at this point
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
going to go down because
Gonna
it's like a
start
virus
dropping.
that's like run out of people to spread to.
Yeah, yeah. It's like the Kingsman 2 kind of shit going on. You know, we're all like the drug ad. Have you seen that one?
Nope.
Kingsman 2. Have you seen Kingsman 1?
Nope.
Alright. Those are pretty good like spy movies, you know, like modern day like James Bond kind of thing.
Okay.
But like the plot of the second one was they produce like a drug, it's like super addictive and or no, there's like this drug kingpin lady. She takes over a bunch of like the drug trade and she puts like poison in like all the drugs. And like then like the people start it's literally like the fentanyl crisis. Honestly,
Yeah.
now that I'm thinking about it, it's literally what's going on with the fentanyl crisis. Like you know, they put a poison in there and like slowly the drug addicts are like dying off, dude. Dude, this is the fucking fentanyl crisis. Holy shit. But yeah, it's like that shit, you know.
Yeah.
And at some point you're gonna run out of fucking junkies crazy enough to go for that shit, which is sad thing, dude. Like there's always a chance for redemption. Always. No matter how low you are, dude. You could always come back from that, but
True. So real. Preach to my four viewers.
hello. Hello few viewers. Hey, don't do drugs. If you do them, make sure there's no fentanyl in it at least, dude. No,
Yeah, they sell fentanyl testing kits by now, so.
yeah, I bet. Oh, all right. Okay. I don't want to get distracted, but like I wanted to talk to you about like the border shit going on and immigration and shit. But like when you bring that up, that like reminded me, there's I didn't know this, but they're still selling like boosters and shit for like the COVID virus and shit. But it's no longer like free. Now it's like $400 or some shit to get a booster. I don't know. I
Yeah.
think that's crazy. Yeah.
Who's even getting a booster anymore at this point?
I don't know, dude, but apparently people are, and like, man,
So true, Gorps.
it seems like they're coming out with like a new booster, like the flu. You know, it's like seasonal, and if it's $400,
Well, I
that's fucking
imagine
crazy.
we were probably subsidizing it during the beginning
Yeah,
during
you know,
COVID, and then
it was
by now
free.
we're
It was,
moved on.
It was all free shit, and now it's $400 for that shit. But no, I want to talk to you. Like, I wanted to come on here to talk to you about the like economic uh, issues that come with like immigration, like illegal immigration, um, and with the job market and stuff. Because like I do, like I've had some experience with that. I have had my like paycheck cut, and like they were hiring more and more like illegal people, and they did, like they were willing to do like a lower and lower pay cut or like paycheck, whatever, so they were willing to take more pay cuts for it. But like like for like people that live in the country, the taxes are insane, and that's one thing I'm really adamant about. I'm saying like we should cut like a fucking 9/10 of the taxes that we get paid, because it's insane. You can get a paycheck that is taxed. You could then send that money over to a friend or something, like say they were struggling, that shit gets taxed. Then they'll spend their money on what they need, and that shit gets taxed. Like, we get taxed through every step of the way, and it really adds up. Like day to day,
Yeah.
we're spending like thousands of dollars, like a month, just getting taxed. Like my paycheck, dude, they take $300 every paycheck I get, and I need that money, man. And so when you like bring in these like illegal immigrants and shit, not immigrants, immigration's good. I am an immigrant. I get like I loved immigration. I feel like it should be smoother. It should be a smoother process. But then again, we get into the issue of like overburdening the system, because like we get so many people trying to come in. But that's something we need to figure out. But like with illegal immigrants and shit coming in, like they do take the jobs for a lot less. And if you feel like you're an employer, even if you're a small business, especially small businesses are getting railed by the government, dude. They get it bad. So like you're
Well,
gonna
I
have
feel
to
like
make cuts. You're gonna have to make cuts wherever you can. And in the labor market, the cheaper you could get it, the better. And it's gonna keep getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And that's like an issue people don't look at. It's like you got to look like 30, 40, 50 years in the future, Like it's just going to keep going lower and lower at like the low, the essential work which we need. And I don't know. It's just the big thing is I think it's all just driven by the fact that Americans aren't happy with the living, just the livelihood that we have. Like nobody's happy. We can't afford houses. You can't afford to raise kids or anything. So people aren't happy with that shit. So it's kind of like demoralized people where they don't want to go into the job market for sure. But if you're gonna keep bringing these people in like that, I feel like they're bringing them in to subsidize the Social Security that Americans aren't paying for because they're not working. Because you can't, like, I feel like a lot of people don't want to work for.
I mean, the prime age employment is at an all-time high. There are a lot of boomers that retired early during COVID, but prime age employment, which are people aged 25 to 54, that rate is at like 80.9%. That's at an all-time high right now. And unemployment is pretty low. It's at 4.2%.
I mean, how much has the population boomed though, Like, is it high by ratio of what it used to be?
Yeah, it's a ratio. It's 80.9% of the population. So.
All right. Yeah. Well, that's pretty good. Yeah, I don't know that.
I feel like I can agree with you a little bit on some of the taxation stuff. I don't like our tax system in a lot of ways. I think we should probably be. I don't think we should be taxing the same income 7 times. I think we should probably switch to a more streamlined.
That's another thing that Kamala was talking about. I know she proposed a bill, or she was like the breaking vote to start
Tie-breaking
taxing
vote on the.
people. Tie breaking vote on the tips. The tips one. You probably know about that one. You probably heard
Oh
about
yeah,
it.
yeah. So she start.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, I don't mind taxing tips. I don't really. I think the no taxing tips is kind of a dumb policy. It's a policy that both candidates support because they want to win Nevada, where a bunch of tipped workers live. I don't really have an issue with going after people's tips if they're being under collected. Yeah.
I don't know. Like the. I mean, that's where you get into the unskilled worker shit. You know, like people are like doing their best to like make the money, and once you start taxing tips and like the tips start not being enough, then like they're gonna just replace them with more people that are willing to work for less, which you know who that's gonna be, and that's gonna be an issue because even for them, like a lot of the people, like a lot of the people I know that are like illegals and stuff, that have been here for years, they are still talking about like it's getting worse and harder for them because like everything, like the the comfort of living just keeps going down and down and down. You know what I mean? Like,
Um, sure. I mean, I'm gonna disagree with you a little bit there. So, I mean, the first thing is I don't necessarily think immigrants reduce wages by that much for most people. It seems like most of the empirical data supports that really the only people who do suffer small decreases in in their wage are like high school dropouts and like teenagers, the other unskilled people. It seems like a lot of Americans just aren't really willing to do some of these unskilled jobs
yeah,
anymore. Like
not
there's a bunch
yeah,
of low paying jobs like in Springfield, where people just don't want to live there and they don't want to work in those factories anymore. They go to university towns and they go to New York and Los Angeles and in Texas and they work in tech jobs. I think if we want those communities not to completely die out, then immigration is a good way to fix that because a lot of immigrants are the ones willing to work for in those jobs. Immigrants are, obviously they're a positive labor supply shock, so they might have a small effect decreasing wages
right.
there, but they're also they're a positive demand shock, right? Like their labor supply, it can enable business expansion, so new businesses are able to be created because their labor supply enables that. And then B, they have their own consumer demand. They also buy products like they're not necessarily doing anything that like a newborn child wouldn't. That native born child is also going to decrease wages by some percent, but also they have their own consumer demand that's going to increase wages for other people by some percent. So usually those two things basically cancel out.
Yeah. I gotta ask. You keep saying like immigration. Are you talking like legal immigration or just immigration as a whole, like including like illegal and all that?
I would say, okay, how are we defining illegal immigration? Are we counting like asylum seekers in that?
No, no. Just like if you went through the process to be an asylum seeker, that's different. If you're here like on a temporary visa or some shit for asylum, that's a lot different than just hopping the border kind of shit, you know?
Well, I think like the big issue right now is technically people are going through the asylum process. It's just really easy to go through that process. Like you can go up to the border. I think you do have to come through a port of entry at this point because I think Biden
Right.
issued his new executive order on that. But I think
Right,
a big issue is like you can claim asylum and as long as you have, I think you're screened for like some low amount of like credible fear or whatever, and it's really easy to get in through the asylum process. So people are making like fraudulent asylum claims. Obviously, many of those people could have claimed asylum in Mexico or Guatemala or somewhere else, but they know they can go to the U.S. and get a better job. So
Yeah,
like
yeah, no, the whole border is pretty fucked. Like, have you heard about the kids with the wristbands and shit?
the kids with their wristband. I heard that story about like the 300,000 missing kids or whatever. I don't know what do you mean by the wristbands, but
All right, I'll kind of give you the gist of the stuff I remember. Apparently, like kids are coming through with colored wristbands, and it's like they're all coded, color coded. Like it's not given to them by the border or anything like that. They're coming with the wristbands. and a lot of them have like numbers on them that are like numbers to like sex traffickers and shit, and like the border patrol and like the FBI and shit, they've like said, yeah, no, we know where these numbers lead to, but like with the policy, they just have to let them through, and like there's different colors for it, for like where they have to go, and it's basically like human trafficking that's not being done anything about it because like of the lax border security that we have. Like, have you heard about that?
I haven't heard about the wristbands before. No.
Uh, yeah. I don't know. Are you pulling that up or?
Yeah, I was reading a thing on it. Like I don't know. Like I think this is yeah, obviously an issue. Like, but a lot of it's like an issue of our asylum system, which like another issue before I know they were having. So like drug cartels would literally. People would pay drug cartels to have them like drop them off at one place on the border, and then the border patrol would have to have to process all of their asylum claims, and then the drug cartels could go through a now unsecure part of the border because border patrol's processing the asylum claims and sneak in through there. But like all
Damn, I didn't even know about that. That's smart, but holy shit,
yeah,
dude.
like all of this is like, all of this is like I think an argument for basically changing our asylum laws, and I have not seen anything from Trump suggesting he wants to do that. The only thing I've seen from Trump is saying that he will completely shut down the border and build a wall. I don't think there's any real policy proposals there. He's the one that shot down the immigration bill in the Senate. That was by no means perfect, but it would have at least done something.
No, I mean like with the all right, you touched on a few things there. Let me start with the last thing you said with the immigration thing, the immigration policy, whatever. I think we should get rid of omnibus bills completely because so many times people will like have the front pages be all good shit, you know, like gotta secure the borders, we gotta stop like child trafficking and shit. But then like in the back pages, they'd always like put some shit like, oh, give us a raise, you know, give us a fucking $100,000 plus year a raise, you know, kind of shit like that, you know, like we should get rid of the omnibus bills because come on, these politicians aren't doing much either way, you know, like
I mean,
make them do their fucking job, but
I don't know. I mean, this was a bipartisan bill, right? So it had, it had trade-offs in both sides, right? Like there were negotiations. What do you mean?
Yeah. Okay. Like, it might be a bipartisan bill, but like, have that be two separate bills. Then you know, like, you can't sneak your agenda through with a shield of we'll secure the border if you give us this. You know, like,
but there would have been. If you split it into two bills, like neither of those bills would have passed, right? Like. The point is, this is a deal, so they'll actually both get passed. Like,
nah, I feel like that's more like holding the other side hostage, and it shouldn't work that way. It should be like, we have one bill right here. This is what it does. Do you agree or not? And if they don't, whatever, you know. But you can't do like, this is what you guys want. Give us this kind of thing. Like, I don't know. It seems kind of shady, you know.
Like, I mean. I don't know how we would ever solve that. Like, we're a democracy. Like we
have
elect people. But like if Congress is split, then like how you ever going to get? You're not ever going to get legislation passed by just debating it. Like I would want there to be like some deal there so legislation can actually get passed.
No, you got to convince people onto your side. You know, that's the way you have to do it.
But we only have elections for Congress, every like 2 years? Like, if Congress is split 50-50, do we just not get to pass almost any legislation until 2 years, where hopefully we get a bigger majority in one party and they can pass legislation? Or,
I mean, if the like people really are mad about that, like if their representatives or Congress or senators aren't representing them, they could always like recall them, you know. There's always a recall. Like if people are thinking like, oh shit, you know, why didn't this guy vote yes on like at least stopping the human trafficking that's going on the border. Like like these argument, like these this shit should be cut into pieces, and so that people could see what exactly people are voting on. And if the people don't like exactly what their senator or state senator or representative or whatever the fuck is voting on, they could just recall them. You got recalled whenever you want,
I
man.
mean,
You don't have to wait 2 years.
we can recall them, but like even that process takes time. I'm saying like if we have a situation,
It does. Yeah, yeah. But then like, you throw in an omnibus and then nobody votes on it, and now what? Nothing has happened for 1 or 2 years ever since that shit got proposed.
but I mean,
Like,
I don't know. It seems like we've passed a decent amount of bipartisan legislation. A lot of the bills Biden passed were bipartisan, right? So, like, it seems like these negotiations to pass bills can work sometimes, at least, even if it might have some, some trade-offs that either side doesn't particularly like.
I mean, yeah, but then doesn't that like what's the word get
Incentivize.
people incentivize? Thank you. Doesn't that just incentivize people to cause issues so then they can use that issue to get what they want? Be like if you didn't want the house on fire and I set the house on fire, be like, I'll put out the fire, but you got to give me $1,000, or like you gotta make the bathroom exclusively for me.
Yeah, you
Like,
just described what
the
Republicans
house is
do
burning.
every single time that we lead up to the debt ceiling. They
Brother,
they hold us hostage,
I'm,
but
I'm telling you, dude, it's a uniparty, dude. They're both fucking shit, dude. They just say what they want you to hear. They say what you want to hear. Both of them, they're both just trash, dude. I despise politicians, dude. They suck so bad, man.
I mean,
But
politicians can be bad. That's fine, but I think there's very clear differences in the
yeah,
policy
yeah,
agenda between these two people, and I feel like Kamala Harris's
yeah,
is just like almost all better.
um, I heard a lot of people saying that like Kamala doesn't have any like policy positions. I don't know if that's true or not. Like, I just hear that kind of off the cuff.
I don't think it's true. I mean, I like obviously when she started out, she didn't really have a I mean, she didn't have a policy page on a website. It didn't seem like she was willing to answer too many questions on policy. But like, number one, Trump's policies are tariffs and drill baby drill. That's like all he's said for the past for his entire campaign. I like his answer on the child care thing. Like, what would you do to bring down the cost of child care?
Yeah, no,
The Ivanka Trump, Marco Rubio. Like,
No,
yeah.
I listened to that one. He fucking rambles. He fucking rambles. But what I think he was trying to say was that he's gonna try to bring like the working class people up in their pay and shit. So like it wouldn't be expensive just because they could afford it. I think that's what he was saying, but I don't know, man. I don't think he was ready for that question, dude. He rambled on that one, dude.
Yeah, all he said is
like,
as much as it's talked about being expensive, it's not in compared to the numbers I'm talking about, including growth.
Yeah.
So whatever, I don't really know.
Do you know? Do you know what numbers he was talking about? Because
No, I think he's just
like,
rambling out of his ass. I don't think he has any actual plan. I think he just thinks that tariffs will somehow solve everything.
Yeah. I don't like. I gotta say, for Trump, I really do like his I'm sorry, I'm not a smart guy, but like the
Base.
the like I don't like the policies and shit he has for like the rest of the world. What would you call that? Like
Foreign policy.
foreign policy. Thank you very much, dude. You helped me out a lot. Yeah,
I mean,
I do like his foreign policies because I do feel like America is kind of turned into the warmonger kind of fucking war state, that a lot of the president, or at least one of them, was like warning about, because it's definitely seems like a lot of the economic growth and shit comes from like when we have wars, because like one of the few things that we do produce in America is weapons, and I don't like that. Like I don't think our economy should be based off like killing people and death, and that's kind of what I feel like he's coming from with the tariffs and shit. Like he wants to tariff the fuck out of like foreign goods. That way there'll be more of an incentive to bring
Golden Snakey, you should link me stuff
bring
about the
production
Doha
back
agreement.
into the United States.
Yeah, I think Trump did a terrible job of that historically, and Biden actually did do a good job at bringing manufacturing back into the United States. Like what Biden did through the Chips and Science Act and the Inflation Reduction Act is he actually like invested in American companies and like gave them subsidies to build plants here. And for like I think $52 billion in subsidies, he ended up getting like $800 billion worth of private investment in chips manufacturing, which is the exact sector that we need it to be in. Versus Trump just did a more blanket tariff on steel and aluminum.
No. I don't think he could deny the fact that the opportunity zones were a good thing. The opportunity zones.
Well, I'm not talking about the
implemented-
opportunity zones right now. I think I haven't read a ton about them, but I think the opportunity zones were probably good. But wasn't that for like underprivileged communities? Like,
yeah, no, it was for underprivileged businesses and shit. They gave them a bunch of tax breaks and shit like that, so that they could grow their own businesses at home domestically. And dude, anything like that, I'm telling you, dude, tax cuts, that's my thing. And like I don't know about any of the shit Biden did. All I know is when Trump was in office, I got a bigger paycheck just from the tax cuts, and I'm all for that, man. Like,
I mean, are you looking at just taxes, or are you looking at taxes and transfers together? It wouldn't surprise me if just looking at taxes themselves, a lot of people got bigger paychecks under Trump or whatever because he did cut taxes, which, by the way, we're still on that tax code. But like a lot of what Biden did is like focused on like transfers, like giving.
No. What I mean, we're still on the tax code. No, Biden, first day, he reversed those policies when he was signing all that shit, reversing everything Trump did. He reversed that tax fucking code. And I know, because my fucking paycheck shrank. For sure, I mean, my paycheck shrank.
What did he repeal specifically? We're still under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which was Trump's legislation that he passed for tax cuts. I don't. There were some reforms we made, like with the American Rescue Plan and Inflation Reduction Act, but most of that had to do with transfers. Like I said, like giving the expanded child tax credit. Like,
you keep saying the Inflation Reduction. What was in that? What did he do with the Inflation Reduction Act? Because I'm not very familiar with that one.
So some of the big things is, one, I think it included $400 billion in like clean energy investment. I think secondly, it included, I think it was the it was either the earned income tax credit or the expanded child tax credit was in that one. I think it was the expanded child tax credit was in that one. It gave like $1,500 to American families with children. It capped insulin prices at $35 per person per month, I think.
Wasn't that one of the Trump policies, that the insulin cap? Didn't he cap that shit off?
Trump had a voluntary program for only Class D Medicare recipients. The Biden policy was not voluntary, and it was for all people on Medicare, not just Class D Medicare recipients. And Trump's policy was temporary. I think it was just Medicare, but Kamala Harris did say that she wants to cap out-of-pocket expenses for everyone, not just seniors.
Didn't the Trump policy, didn't that include Medicare?
The Trump policy for capping insulin costs was a voluntary program for only Class D Medicare recipients, not all Medicare and Medicaid recipients.
All right, what's Class D? Because I'm pretty sure that shit did include Medicare. Because I'm pretty sure.
Well, Class D is a subset of Medicare. It's not everyone on Medicare. It's only Class D people on Medicare. It's like I forget exactly what people it covers, but I don't know. Medicare Parts A, B, C, and D. I gotta read the thing. But I remember it was a voluntary program that like didn't include everyone, is what I remember. And also, the Inflation Reduction Act gave Medicare the ability to negotiate all drug prices, so they can't be fucking scammed on drug prices. Medicare's prescription drug benefit Part D is the part of Medicare that provides outpatient coverage. Part D is provided only through private insurance companies that have contracts with the federal government. It is never provided by directly by the government.
Medicare, like Medicare, right?
What do you mean?
Contracted with the government. That's got to be Medicare, right?
Well, yeah, it's provided to private insurance companies that have contracts with the federal government, which is, I'm assuming, private.
Medicare. Yeah, that would be Medicare.
But
They're
not
contracted with the government, though.
But not all of Medicare, is what I'm saying. Hold on, I'm sure they're Trump. Because this is just Medicare Part D. Medicare also has a ton of other parts. When it says Part D is provided only through private insurance companies, I'm assuming what that means is the government is contracting private insurance companies to provide benefits to people. Is what it means.
If there's parts to the Medicare, are some of them private then, or?
Well, I think this is what I think the government is saying. I think what this means is the government is contracting private companies to essentially play part of the role that Medicare usually plays. Trump created a $35 per month cap on insulin for some people in Medicare through a voluntary program that prescription drug plans could choose to participate in, but it did not sign a law to secure the future of the program. Biden and Harris did get a statute passed, and the law created a permanent $35 per month Medicare insulin policy that went far beyond Trump's. The law ensured that all 3.4 million plus insulin users in Medicare, not just some of them, got $35 per month insulin. It also did so through a mandatory cap that not only covers people on Trump's that covers more people than Trump's voluntary cap, but also applies to a greater number of insulin products than Trump's did. So.
All right. Okay. I'm just a little confused about it. I guess I don't really know much about the Medicare whole thing to get into it, because I didn't even know there was like layers to it. I thought it was all like one thing. But
Well, I think I misinterpreted a little. There's different parts in Medicare which I guess cover different things. So Medicare Part D covers
isn't
prescription
it all
drugs.
Free though? Like, do you have to pay for some of them or something?
I think it's I mean, I'm pretty sure Medicare patients still have like co-pays, and they still, I think some of them still have premiums. I think the premiums are subsidized, but I think they still have them. Some of them at least. I think if you're poor enough, you probably don't pay any, but if you have some level of income, you probably pay.
All right. So did that change? How did that change with the Biden stuff then?
Well, the Inflation Reduction Act.
He had like another. Did he do DNC or?
Well, he did all in Medicare. He capped insulin prices, and also on the premium saying they must have premiums, because I remember actually the Inflation Reduction Act included subsidies, or no, I think it included subsidies to people who bought health insurance through ACA marketplaces to reduce premiums for like 20 million people or something.
What's ACA again? Sorry, I'm not expert on it. What is ACA?
That's the Obamacare.
American Care Act?
Affordable Care Act. Right. Yeah, some Medicare recipients do pay premiums, but for most of them, the government pays a substantial portion.
All right, so does that mean if you're on ACA with the Biden shit, it's all free? Or
it's not all free, it's just cheaper. It's just the government pays some of it.
Oh. And Trump's, you only pay if you're like really poor, or?
Well, Trump didn't do anything on healthcare premiums, as far as I know. All he tried to do is try to repeal Obamacare and failed. But
I just mean with the insulin cap.
The insulin. Yeah, Biden did it for everyone. Trump only did it for some people, and Trump did it temporarily through a voluntary thing, and Biden did it permanently through a non-voluntary thing.
everyone like what do you mean with everyone?
Everyone on Medicare. I think it's Medicare and Medicaid.
Like everyone on the ACA?
No, just everyone on Medicare. ACA
It isn't.
just regulates
I thought that
regulates
was. I
healthcare
thought that.
companies.
Yeah, I thought that was all the same stuff. Then.
I'm pretty sure I don't. ACA is a little bit before my time. I'm pretty sure all that ACA did or Obamacare did. A, it had some
Yeah.
like regulations on what private healthcare companies can do, and B, there's the ACA marketplace is like a government. It's like a government shop for insurance. I don't know exactly how it works, but you can buy insurance through an ACA marketplace, and there's some
Yeah.
cooperation between private insurance companies and the government to lower premiums for people who can't
Yeah,
afford higher premiums.
I thought ACA was Medicare. I thought the Obama care was Medicare.
No, I think Medicare's been around for way longer than that. Yeah, Medicare was established all the way back in 1965.
Oh, fucking word, dude. God damn. All right, so Trump lowered it for only a bit of him, and
Only some
Biden
people temporarily on a voluntary cap. Yeah.
temporarily. Well, for how long?
That's a good question. Okay, well, it says he did not sign a statute, a law to secure the future of the program. So I don't know exactly what that means. I'm assuming
Yeah,
he probably
so
did it
did
through
somebody-
executive action. That I'm assuming what that means is
Yeah.
he probably did it through
Yeah.
executive action, which could, in
So-
theory, just be repealed with the next legislation or next
Yeah,
president.
so with Biden, Biden killed it, and then he brought his own thing.
Well, I don't know if Biden killed it or not, but Biden did a more extensive.
If he brought up his own thing, then wait, what else could Biden do then? Because he can't just make laws. Did
He can't
like,
make laws, but he worked with Congress to pass the Inflation Reduction Act.
brought it
I
to
think
the
that
Congress?
was authored by his campaign, and then but yeah, like Kamala Harris was the tie-breaking vote in it. He worked with Congress, and his team worked with Congress to get it passed. Who wrote Inflation Reduction Act?
Did Trump try to get it passed through Congress? Do you know if they killed it or not in Congress?
The Inflation Reduction Act would not have been during Trump's term. No.
Yeah, no, not the Inflation Reduction Act. The insulin stuff.
Oh no, I don't think so.
You don't think he brought it to Congress?
I
feel
doubt
like
it. And if it did, it would probably be attached to border wall funding or something the Democrats were super opposed to.
That's what dude. I'm saying we gotta get rid of the omnibus bill, dude. We gotta get rid of it because see, like even there, like if Trump did do that and he hooked it onto the, like border security shit, then like shouldn't they be both separate? You know?
Well, I mean, I don't like in a democracy. I would expect people to try to come to the table and negotiate, and make
Yeah.
concessions for for what they want to get passed. I
Like,
don't really
would it-
know a better way to do that, but
I mean, bring it issue to issue though. You know, instead of like omnibusing it with like what you said, like if he did attach border security to that shit, like they should be two separate things. And like there's some shit we could all agree on, but it just won't get passed because people keep attaching shit that they can get agreed on to with it. And
well, I think a
that
lot of
doesn't
times the
feel-
reason like we attach things though is to get bills passed. Like if I like a lot of Republicans didn't want to pass Ukraine aid, they didn't want to give money to Ukraine. So the reason we said, okay, well maybe we'll give you border reform if you give aid to Ukraine. It was part of a deal.
It should be separate then. Like with
But like
what you
Ukraine
said with
aid's
the-
never going to get passed without negotiations for border reform. Well, actually, it was passed eventually once the Republican Party
Then
got their
it-
shit together. But
then it shouldn't get passed. Like this is a democracy, and if half the people don't want to pass it, then it shouldn't get passed. You know, but like that doesn't mean that like fucking insulin caps shouldn't get passed just because like now it's getting attached to Ukraine. You know, like Like we should get at least shit we need done, and we gotta have a discussion about like shit like Ukraine later. You
But I
know
mean,
what I mean?
like, these are on a time scale. We kind of need to address Ukraine now. We kind of need to
I
address
mean,
the border now.
I mean,
We can't
how
really,
many?
if we can't wait for either new elections in Congress or for people to be recalled or
Yeah,
for
yeah. I
debate to
mean,
somehow get settled.
how many years has it been since Ukraine? You know, like I feel like
2 years,
it would
I
be
think.
yeah. Like in those 2 years, I'm sure people would have got recalled if the country if the people they were representing didn't like what they had to say about it. They would have been recalled by now, and now we're still in the standstill. You know, like
But we wouldn't have been in a standstill if it wasn't for Trump, who told people not to pass the bill on Truth Social and I think he called senators to not get it passed as well. Like,
yeah, I don't think you could lay that on him, dude. Because even before him, we've had problems with like the omnibus bill, where like the other party, whatever you want it to be, they try to pass something with an omnibus, and then the other one's like, no, you know, we won't vote on this. You know, like we don't want this. Like the main thing you're saying is a good thing, but we don't want the other thing. You know. Like it just causes more
well,
division
yeah,
on something simple.
you might not want the other thing, but the issue is the other side wants that thing.
Yeah,
So you take two
yeah, no,
things the other side doesn't
yeah.
want, and you'd like negotiate.
Again, dude, that's what I'm saying. It's like a scummy thing, like the analogy I brought up earlier with the burning house. You know, like give me the upstairs bathroom, or I'm gonna let the house burn. You know, like kind of shit. It's like you want the house to be put out, but if you don't vote on giving me the bathroom, you know, you might do it out of spite, be like, you know, fuck you, dude. Like, I'm gonna let the house burn because I don't want to give you the upstairs bathroom like over this, you know. Like,
Yeah, you should look up literally every single time the U.S. has run up against the debt ceiling. That is exactly what Republicans do. They say cut spending, or we are literally going to let
oh
the
my
U.S.
God.
default, even though the
Yeah,
U.S.
dude,
defaulting is probably
yes.
unconstitutional. But
Dude, currency. Can we have a discussion about the currency in this country? Because it is
Sure.
so fucked up, dude. It is. We have a private entity issuing us debt on the money that they print for us. And nowadays, it's not even printing. Nowadays, it's just fucking, they're typing numbers for us on a computer, and we're getting issued debt on a private company. That is
what do you mean
insane.
private company? Do you mean the Federal Reserve, or do you
Yeah,
mean
yeah.
private
Federal
banks?
Reserve. No, Federal Reserve. They're a private fucking company issuing us debt on the money that we borrow from them to use as our currency. Which, how does that even make sense? Like,
Well, what do you mean issuing us debt? They can buy U.S. debt. The Treasury is the one that issues the debt, and then the Fed
No.
can indirectly
No.
buy it, right? But
they loan us money. They loan us the bills on interest.
oh,
So
that's what you mean. Sure. Okay.
yeah, they're like, how are we gonna pay them back anything at all if we're constantly in debt, and the only way to pay off the debt is to borrow more from them to pay off the debt? You know, if I borrow $100 and you're the only one that has $100, and now I have $100, but you're like, next year is gonna be 120. You got to pay me back. I only have $100. How am I gonna pay you back 120 without like getting a 20 from you? But then you're like, that 20 has $5 on interest. You know, like
Well, when you say
it's a
our debt,
cycle.
who do you mean the government debt, or do you mean private debt, or do you mean like?
It's it's all the same. It's all debt to the fucking like the
Well,
debt
debt is
starts.
also just money,
Not-
right?
The debt starts with the Federal Reserve, and then the debt gets passed on to us, the taxpayers, that we got to pay back to the government. That somehow they're gonna pay back more money than they borrowed to the Federal Reserve. That doesn't make sense, dude. That's like what I was saying. Like if I gave you $100 and I said you got to pay me back 120, but I'm the only one that has dollars, how are you gonna pay me back 120 if you borrowed $100? You can't. You got to borrow more. Like the whole fucking system doesn't make sense. Dude, have you seen the interview with like the head economics dude, whatever, in the White House? And they asked him
Uh,
to like explain the economics of the United States, and he was like, "Yeah, and then like the Federal Reserve, they like print the money." Like he was confused about it. I don't think he understood
maybe
it.
are you talking about the interview the one person did with Stephanie
Yeah,
Pelton?
I don't know who Stephanie is, but no, if you know what I'm talking about when I say that, that's the guy. Yeah, dude,
I
like
might know what you're talking about.
you
I
know,
might know
no,
because there's.
no, you know, that shit was fucking wild, dude. That shit was wild,
Well, I
and
think
it's a
the thing I'm
it's,
thinking of. I don't know if we're thinking of the same thing. It's basically when a girl asked like the head of the, I think it was the former head of the Fed or something like, why are we borrowing from the Federal Reserve when the Federal Reserve can just print
no,
money?
no, no,
Yeah, I don't
no.
know, but
That is a good question. What did he have to say about that?
well, he gave a bad answer. I forget
Yeah,
exactly what he said. He gave like a stumbly,
yeah,
like dumb answer. The real
yeah.
answer is
I believe that. I
they would
believe
cause
that.
inflation. There's no reason we can't. There's no reason we can't actually do that. If we wanted to, we could just print money to pay for everything. We don't actually have to pay taxes or anything. But,
We can't, because it's not us printing the money. It's a private
well,
company.
the U.S.
printing
government, if they wanted to, could
they
abolish the
can't.
Fed, and then
They could and they should. They should abolish the Fed, because why are we borrowing money from a private entity in the first place? Like the government, like I
well,
always
what's the
thought,
alternative?
the government prints their own money. The states print their own money.
But we probably don't
like
want
that.
monetary policy in control of politicians, right? Because then they could literally just say, "Hey, we're going to print money and give it to everybody if you elect us," right? Like that's politicians usually have a pro-inflationary bias. Is the argument?
Don't they already do that? And if they did do that, like
Well, they don't already do that because they can't
we
directly print money.
I'm saying no, like people were offered money to vote in the last election.
Who was offered money to vote in the last election? I don't think that's legal.
Did you not see that, dude?
What,
It
are you
is.
just gonna say what? Because Biden canceled student loan debt or something? Or
You know, let me see this.
I don't know if the federal government can give people money to vote in federal elections.
No.
Thanks for the
wasn't
sub,
federal.
Catherine and Bradford. Welcome to the stream.
Really.
But also, like most of our money is debt, right? Like debt creates
Yeah,
money.
I know.
Money is debt. Like
I know that. That's
thanks
not
for the
a
sub, Kai.
sustaining.
Only one of these people.
That shit doesn't sustain shit, dude.
I mean, it seems like we've been sustaining on our fractional reserve system since when was the Fed created?
I don't. You think it's still doing
Thanks
pretty
for the,
good today, though?
Josie, thanks for the stuff, Josie.
Like I get we're off the petrodollar, you know, like America's literally holding guns to other countries, forcing them to use the petrodollar, but that shit's not sustaining, dude. The BRICS fucking nations coming together to form their own currency, that shit's gonna fuck us, dude. Like what is it, like China, Russia,
yeah, China, Russia, South Africa, I think India or something.
Yeah, South Africa.
I don't know. Seems
India,
like
India too, huh, dude? Those guys
Seems like- I
make
think-
our shit, dude. Dude, those guys make our shit. If they swapped you bricks, we're gonna have to be buying bricks dollars to buy our shit from them. Like,
I mean,
and I feel like it's all a part of the plan, because like then the cycle's just gonna restart. You know, like we're right here. You know, we're rolling, and this is bricks. You know, and it's just rolling. You know, they're gonna come up with a new name for this, a new name. You know, and it's just gonna keep going and over again, because it's literally sustained off nothing, dude. Like it's trash, dude. Like it's falling, dude. And I don't know. If BRICS takes off, what are we gonna do? If China's not trading any U.S. currency anymore, the dollar is just collapsing, dude. Because all of our shit comes from China, dude.
First of all, if you want to bring back U.S. manufacturing, okay, BRICS is probably actually a good thing. the U.S. being the world reserve currency, basically it appreciates our dollar in foreign reserve markets because everyone needs U.S. dollars. It means there's a lot of demand for U.S. dollars.
Yeah. That also means that we have to like keep other countries using the U.S. dollar, which is kind of shit, you know. Like,
well, I think a lot of countries want to use the U.S. dollar because like we're the most stable country.
Because it's strong right now, dude. But the only reason it is strong is because like we like who is the one dude that they accused of using chemical weapons on his own people? I think it was like in Iraq. Was it him?
Yeah, Saddam Hussein in Iraq.
Yeah, he wanted to get off. I don't want to be on Saddam Hussein's side, dude. Give me someone else. Give me a Cuban guy or some shit. Now, like anytime, like one of these countries want to get off the U.S. dollar, like, come on, you know, like CIA, dude, they fucking coup them. Like they coup the shit out of him, because we need other countries. That's why our shit's so strong. Is because other countries do use it out of like force. Like.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, what I'm saying is,
I'll give you another example. There's this guy, South African dude. It's probably why South Africa is joining the BRICS nations and shit. But this guy, he wanted to get off the U.S. dollar and shit, because the U.S. dollar wasn't supporting their country enough. You know, like. People get tired of being America's bitch, and well, you could probably guess what happened to him. Like any nation that tries to get off the petrodollar, the leader gets killed.
I don't know if we do that. Maybe they end a code war. I don't know if we do that anymore. Like, didn't Saudi Arabia agree to start selling oil in euros now too? Like,
they do it, dude. They do it. Like. Shit has not changed. Like, I know people want to think that, but the shit just does not change. People just stay on the same old. Like,
well,
why would
Saudi Arabia? I thought Saudi Arabia also started selling their oil in euros or something as well, but maybe not. But
yeah, well, anyways, the whole point of it, since we're on the petrodollar, dude, once that shit collapses. Like, what are we gonna do if like our money is backed by the gun that we're holding against other nations' heads? If they find out the gun's not loaded and they walk away, like, what do we have? You know, so it is really it's really a bad thing, because like for us, we're gonna take the brunt force of it, but I feel like the people that are in, like the head honchos. Like the rich of the rich kind of people, they could jump ship whenever they want, you know. Like a lot of these people are already fucking swapping their US for like euros and shit. So, like, the US dollar's not gonna stay up for long unless we like actually back it by something instead of like debt, you know.
Well, I mean, again, the first thing I'm going to mention is having the U.S. dollar be strong isn't always a good thing. I think even Trump wants to depreciate the dollar because that helps brings American manufacturing back. The U.S. dollar being strong really means the U.S. dollar is expensive for other currencies to buy. That means other currencies have a hard time buying our exports. So the U.S. dollar going down in value is going to help American exports because it makes our exports cheaper relative to other countries, which increases our GDP as well because exports are included in GDP. But like, I think a lot of the fears about this are probably over exaggerated. I don't like China's been in a recession since COVID.
Nah,
like
I don't think it is, dude. I don't think it is because how much money do we make off exports, and what are those exports? You know, I feel like a lot of our exports are just like cultural shit. You know, nothing we make is like exported from America. Like, what are people buying that's exported from America like entirely?
I don't know. I mean, we're definitely a service economy. for the most part by now.
Yeah.
So like a lot of our exports are whatever financial shit. It's true we don't manufacture a lot of things anymore, but that's because we
see that's a
don't have
problem. And if the US dollar like just fucking keeps going down and shit, why would they trade with us? What would they trade with us for, you know? We don't have anything. We don't have any exports. Our shit's dead, dude. And that's why I feel like bringing this shit back is going to be really important. Like, yeah, we have like fruits and shit, you know, that you could buy, but other countries make those fruits too, you know? Like, if it gets too much, they're just going to go to the other people, buy their shit from them.
Yeah, well, apparently a biggest
like-
export is
like
oil.
the main reason these other countries are buying our shit is because we give them money to buy our shit with our own money, you know? Like, if I gave you $1 million and was like, yo, I got a bunch of oil, dude, you know, give me $1,000 for it, you'd be like, "Pff, all right." That's the whole thing with like us giving away all this money for like foreign aid and shit. It's like, no, it's not for foreign aid. Like, these countries, they'll just take that money and they'll use it to buy shit from us. It's I don't know. Have you ever seen that? Do you watch Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
No.
All right, it's a really good show. It's funny as hell, dude. You should watch it. It's stupid as hell, but there's like an episode where they make their own currency, and they go out to like the homeless. Like, there's a bunch of homeless people in front of their, like, these guys own a bar and shit, and you know, one day there's a bunch of homeless people around, and they're like, how do we capitalize off this shit? So they print their own money, like Dave and Buster's kind of shit, and they go around giving away their money to people, you know, and they give away a bunch of these Shamrock bucks or whatever the fuck to these people, and they come into the, and like they're like, oh, you can only spend it here, you know, and they get all these people coming in, and they're spending their own, like, the money they printed at this place, which is us, which is America. Like, I don't think that was like the fucking plot of it, but
Yeah.
like, it's just a good analogy. So they're like spending the money that they printed at their own bar, and they keep getting these people back and back, you know. Like, that's kind of how it works, you know. We give money to other countries, and these other countries spend their money on us, and it keeps our economy going, but it can't last forever. Because it's literally, we're giving them money, and they're spending it here for nothing. It's nothing to them. Because, like, we're like, here, have free gas. You just got to give us the paper back, you know.
I
It's just a
mean,
facade.
I'm sure we could maybe find some examples of that, but like
No. We need like a complete alteration of like our economic system, because this shit does not work, and it pisses me off, dude. Because, like, man, with inflation and like taxes and shit, like, the taxes keep the inflation down because they got to pull money out of the system because they're giving it all away to like other places.
Is he secretly an MMT or what?
It's just insane, dude.
I mean, you're not entirely wrong. Taxes can bring inflation down if they reduce aggregate demand, but like,
Yeah,
inflation,
because-
first of all, is already back down. We're back down to about 2% inflation right now. We just cut rates.
Now you got to look it up, dude. They changed the metrics of how they calculate inflation just
When
so
in
it would go
1983?
down. No. Like in like 2021 or some shit. No. When did they? Hang on. They changed it not that long ago. When inflation, like after, like during COVID shit, they changed the metrics of how you calculate inflation.
I mean, depending on what metric you use to calculate inflation, it changes all the time. Like the CPI has to track.
It's been the same for years and years and years, and then when inflation started getting really bad, they changed it so it would go back down. I'm telling you, dude, the real inflation numbers, it's fucking wild, dude.
I mean, I'm aware that they changed how it was calculated in 1983, and people talk about that a lot. I'm aware of shadow stats, fake stats on inflation, but I'm inclined to for the most part, trust the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I think they had a good reason to change it in 1983. I'm not aware of any big changes that they made in 2020 or 2021. If you can link something on that, then maybe we can look at that. But
All right, let me look it up, dude. Because I'm telling you, man, inflation is, if you calculate it how they used to, it's a lot worse than what it is now. How they calculate it. Like, it makes sense though. We've been spending money like a motherfucker. Like even Trump, dude, he spent money like a bitch, dude. And now we're spending even more money. Like obviously, inflation is gonna go up with that. Like the more money is out in circulation, the more inflation is gonna go up, and the more they're gonna have to raise their taxes to decrease that inflation. But at some point, the system's gonna have to collapse, and they're gonna have to go into a recession just to reset it.
oh, we've avoided recession so far, unlike most European countries. But
Doesn't mean it's not coming. That's
one,
not
when
mean
you
it's
say
not coming, dude.
print money, I think that can be a little misleading, because a lot of times what people are talking about is QE, quantitative easing, which can be printing money and also sometimes isn't printing money. The reason why QE looks like printing money is basically just because what we count as money. QE increases bank reserves, and decreases the amount of assets held by private firms, and we count bank reserves as money, but we don't count their assets as money. But it doesn't necessarily increase total aggregate demand. Now, what can happen if the government is spending money at the same time QE is happening, the Federal Reserve can end up basically financing the purchases of government bonds, which that can have the effect of printing money. But otherwise, which is like what happened during COVID. But otherwise, like I sound like examples of what can happen in the little chat on the side. You can see, banks have cash reserves and they have money, and they have like the financial like assets they hold. And when we do QE, basically what the Federal Reserve is doing is they're buying parts of the financial crust from the banks. And now the Federal Reserve has those assets. It has them on their balance sheet, and the banks have the money, but it's not necessarily printing money all the time, but sometimes it can be. And secondly, like, there are reasons to print money. There can be positive trade-offs to printing money usually. Have you ever heard of the term paradox of thrift?
Oh, what's that?
So the idea is basically an increase in individual savings will actually lead to a decrease in total savings throughout the economy, and a decrease in total output, which can like keep us in a recession. So you can imagine, if I start saving more money because we're in a recession, or I think we're going to be in a recession soon, that means my spending is falling, which necessarily means someone else's income is falling, which means now they're spending less money, which means someone else's income is falling. And what this can end up doing is decreasing consumption, and that decreases everyone's income, which in turn decreases total savings and total output. So usually we want to print money so we stabilize what's called effective demand, so people keep spending their money. That's usually why we want to print money. And then there's also probably positive effects on employment. Usually aggregate demand shocks are going to move inflation and unemployment in opposite directions. So if the government gives people a huge stimulus bill, it might increase inflation, but also we're going to decrease unemployment.
All right. Yeah, I just sent you the thing on the general chat, and I'll be right back. I got to take a piss real quick.
Okay.
But BRB, take a look at that.
It says from 2023, which is after the inflation spike. US CPI calculation methodology will change from January 2023 onward. Not only will global investors, the stock market might closer be aligned with the consumer price index, but also be looking for the inflation numbers, which will reflect the new methodology for the first time. We'll release the United States inflation numbers on a method used to calculate CPI change release. One marked the beginning of a new transitional yearly weights. addition, with the release of, so yeah, it just changed the weights. In addition, with the release of the new data, new vehicles will have been a methodological change for the first time that estimates most recent cyclical trend and short-term fluctuations. I don't really know what that means. Starting with the February 2023 publication of CPI data for January 2023, the BLS will annually revise the CPI weights based on a single calendar year data utilizing consumer expenditure data from 2021. This differs from the prior method, which updates weights using 2 years worth of expenditures data for 2 years. Okay. So do you know roughly how CPI is calculated?
Now or back then?
Back then and now. I mean, like,
no, no to both.
Yeah. So basically, what the CPI does is it tracks a fixed basket of consumer goods. So they look at a bunch of goods that people regularly buy, like chicken, like fucking furniture, like used cars and new cars. They track all these things, and now, the price of homes and the price of, basic goods like milk matter more to people than the price of ice cream or other goods like that. So what they do is they assign each of these weights. So they say we're going to weight like housing 30%. So, the price of housing going up 1% is reflected more in inflation numbers than the price of ice cream going up 1%. This methodology, which they changed in 2023, which was after the big spike in inflation. The big spike was in 2021 and 2022. This is after that big spike. What they changed was just how often the weights were calculated. So they try to change these weights based on, how much consumers are buying the thing. So if people start buying less chicken, then they start weighting chicken less because they don't want to weight something super heavily if people aren't buying it anymore. What they did is this just changes how often the weights are adjusted. So now the weights are adjusted every year based on a single year of data versus updating them every 2 years based on data from the previous 2 years. So they just update the weights more frequently now.
That still doesn't moot my point of they changed the calculations for inflation.
Well, they changed it but they change it, yes, but they just they changed it to actually this is probably more accurate. They are changing the weights more often. First of all, they only changed this in 2023 after the big spike. So the big spike in inflation we saw in 2021 and 2022 would still be accurate. And then the fall that we saw in 2023 would still be accurate. But
and the last one we saw, 2021 and 2023 were rising. And then
I believe
now
it's
like going down.
Began to fall late 2022. Fred CPI. I believe it spiked in like June 2022 or something. At a graph, percent change year over year. It reached its highest in June 2022. Predicted it, always knew it. And then it began to fall since then. And yeah, it reached 3% in June 2023. They changed it, they said, in January. So we would have still seen like a 2 point or 3 point fall before they changed the methodology even. I don't know why we would expect it not to continue to go down anyway. But we also have different metrics of inflation, which all show, like CPI isn't the only way to measure inflation. So you can use PCE or you can use the harmonized index, both of which also show a lot of disinflation at the same time.
All right. CPI was the one that changed. And I'm sure the other systems changed along with it. But how can we have a accurate read of shit if they just keep changing it? I get it, the whole thing with the weights and shit like that, but shouldn't that factor into the issue? Since nobody's buying houses anymore, that's gonna lower the inflation? That doesn't make sense.
Unless they're gonna decrease the weight of housing, because although I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure they still have housing. I don't know if they have ever adjusted the housing weight down. I'm pretty sure they still have it at 36%. Or it's 22%. I think it's higher in PCE, but I mean, yeah, the reason, yeah, oh no, shelter's at 32%, food is at 13.99%, energy's at 7.54%. I don't know how often they adjust the housing prices, but like we do this to try to more accurately measure inflation. Like previously, like I said, we were only adjusting the weights every 2 years. It's probably a better measure of inflation to adjust it every 1 year. Usually.
All right, you say it was every 2 years, but the last time they changed it was in 1980 something, right? So why didn't they change it every 2 years?
Well, the article you sent me says that previously they used to revise weights based on 2 years of data every 2 years, but now they revise weights based on 1 year data every year. The thing I was referring to with 1983 was the last time they majorly changed the methodology for CPI. Yeah. I just like the demand for housing probably doesn't change that much, so I don't know when the last time they changed the housing weight was, but I doubt that they changed the housing weight significantly that often. And again, there are other measures of inflation that we can look at too that show even lower measures of inflation. Usually CPI shows the highest measure.
Yeah, I don't know. We got to look at like one of them and figure out the change of it. But no, I'm telling you, like with the changes and shit, like it's not just in the weights of it. Like that's just gonna affect like how you calculate it. Like they changed how you calculate inflation for sure.
Yeah, but to be more like, there are probably legitimate reasons to change how we calculate inflation, right? They're just changing how often the weights are adjusted. They're not changing it in any significant way that would make inflation seem like artificially low.
I don't know. Like think of it like in a national security standpoint, wouldn't the government want to keep the like the real inflation numbers down?
Well,
like they would have good reason to keep the like real numbers down.
Not
because
so the Bureau of Labor Statistics is the people who measure it.
Yeah.
They probably want to give an accurate measure to the Federal Reserve, because the Federal Reserve is looking at these numbers to make their interest rate decisions. So there would be really negative effects if the Federal Reserve was getting bad data. Like if inflation was artificially low and the Federal Reserve saw that and then decided to cut rates, inflation would then be pushed higher, which would, I mean, it would be a spiral because it'd make it even harder and harder to hide every single time. And also the economy would be fucked. Like, I don't see any good evidence that anyone is influencing the Bureau of Labor Statistics to calculate inflation in an artificially low way. Yeah.
You know. God damn, dude.
I'm banned on Twitter for 3 days because I spam liked my own shit. Dude, I saw a video of someone spam liking and it adding likes over time, and I was like, there's no fucking way this shit works. And I just spam liked my own post and it works. What are you looking at right now? What are you trying
to? I got a little something. You got to go down to. You got to scroll down a bit here to like the controversy over CPI and then the changes in methodology. Um, my big concern with that one is how can you accurately calculate shit if you keep changing it, you know?
Well, usually they want to change it. First of all, I don't think they changed it significantly that often, but they want to. You probably want to update the weights as often as possible to accurately reflect what consumers are buying. Like that's why we change it. What did we? What were the changes here? Describe CPI, cost of living, blah 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 blah. This just says factors adding to the controversy, but it doesn't go into what they changed. Change in methodology. Over the years, methodology has undergone various metrics. According to the real estate, changes remove biases that overstated the inflation rate. The new methodology takes into account changes in quality goods and the effects of substitution. Substitution to changes to consumers. So yeah, this is adjusting the weights to account for substitution bias. The results tend to be a lower CPI. Critics view the methodological changes as a switch from a COGI to a COLI. It's a purposeful manipulation that allows the government to report a lower CPI. I don't know what is COGI. Oh. Cost of living index versus a cost of goods index. When did they make these changes even? They made these changes in... They don't tell me. Why would they tell me? Yeah, it would not be a very big change. I mean, the reason they started doing this, I don't know when they started doing this, was because CPI suffers from substitution bias. And it doesn't account for quality improvements in goods and services. That's the like so, they tried to make it a more accurate measure of inflation again, but like this is a I don't know when they started doing this, and I don't imagine the effect would be that big anyway. But
so wouldn't it be indicative of like all these changes be indicative of like the inflation constantly going up and them trying to lower it by changing it? Because if you had it on like a base level from the start, it'll be much higher now. So like, doesn't it seem like they're constantly changing the metrics of like the way they calculate the shit just to improve their numbers?
Not at all. I don't know. Just because they changed the methodology slightly, which is yeah. I can't imagine this would have a big effect.
How can you have an accurate read of anything if you keep changing the methodology?
Because you're changing it to make it more accurate.
Is it making it more accurate though?
Yeah, I don't know how much you know about the different measures of inflation, but like CPI often suffers from what's called substitution bias, and whereas PCE doesn't, but PCE has other drawbacks. So I think what they started doing is they tried to better account for substitution bias, because with CPI, there's concern that if you're tracking a fixed basket of goods, only the goods in this basket, if something else comes along that is not in the fixed basket of goods, you don't track inflation for that, and there's a substitution effect which can overestimate inflation. But do you know when they made these changes? I don't even know this says updated December 2nd, 2023. So
2023 probably.
But we already started seeing disinflation after June 2022.
Dude, I mean, if you just look at the charts going back 10, 20, 30 years, they're just constantly going higher. Like, I don't know what they added to the basket to account for that, but ever since then it's been going higher, higher, and then out of nowhere it just drops. Like, what did they add into the basket? What weights did they change to make it drop so much?
Well, I think the price of things probably has stopped rising as much.
Have they though? Because everything
Do you think prices are still rising at 9% per year?
I think everything here is higher. At least here, everything here is higher than it was a year, 2 years, 3 years ago.
Sure, that makes sense, but that doesn't mean that prices are still rising at 9% per year. Do you know? Do you know what the difference between like cumulative inflation and just inflation is?
Explain that to me.
So inflation is just the rate at which prices are increasing. So when inflation goes down, it just means the rate at which the prices are increasing goes down. It doesn't mean the prices themselves go down. Cumulative inflation is all the price increases over time, essentially. So cumulatively,
Isn't
like
that the same
obviously.
thing? Isn't
No.
that the same thing though? All right, okay,
If
so
the price of something is $1 and inflation is
Alright.
at 9%, it'll go up to $1.09.
Not
If
9
inflation
cents.
then falls to 2%, it'll go up, it'll be $1, whatever 2% of 109 is on top of that. But
so
that
is
9% inflation is still there. It's still added to the product. It's just been another 2% on top of that rather than another 9% on top of that. Cumulative inflation is all the price increases. So you would say there's been a 11% increase in the cumulative inflation there.
What is it, like 5 years versus yearly or something? Like
Yeah, well,
yearly
usually we
would be
measure inflation.
Cumulative would be like
yeah,
5 years.
Well, cumulative,
Kinda
you can
thing.
do any time span. Usually inflation is measured like year over year, but I mean,
Yeah.
you can do month over month too. There can be month over month inflation, how much it
Well,
increased in a certain month.
Cumulatively, inflation has been rising since like
Cumulatively, inflation, yes, has been rising since all of forever, essentially,
So-
yes.
Wouldn't that be indicative that inflation has been rising? I mean,
No,
it might
because
go down.
inflation
It
is the
might-
rate at which the prices
yeah, no,
are
no,
increasing.
yeah,
The rate at which they're increasing has fallen.
I get that. Yeah, I get that, but it's still rising.
Cumulative
hasn't gone
inflation has risen. Yes, it has not
No,
gone down.
no.
We probably don't want it to
Yeah,
go down.
Yeah, but inflation itself, it's still not at zero.
We probably
So
don't
it's-
want inflation to be at zero.
Why not?
One, because the Fed doesn't want to have rates high enough to keep inflation at zero, which restricts growth and will probably put us into a recession. And two,
growth?
because the
Whose
economy's growth.
is it restricted? How would that? If we had
When interest
no-
rates are high, it's more expensive to take out loans, and banks don't lend as much, which decreases
Yeah.
investment and consumer spending.
Yeah, so if the Fed isn't giving us money, the inflation goes down. If the Fed isn't printing money, the inflation goes down. But if they
Well-
do print money, the inflation goes up.
That's not what I'm. Yes, but that's not what I'm really talking about right now. Do you know the Fed? The Fed sets interest rates, right? The federal
Yeah.
funds rate, and so the idea is.
The private entity sets rates on the money that they're lending out to us.
Kinda. It sets the fund. So it sets a few different rates. It sets.
That is what it is, dude.
Well, it sets the federal funds rate, which is the rate at which banks can lend to each other on an overnight lending basis, and that ends up having effects on the interest rate everywhere.
Of their own
basically.
money.
Of the
their own
bank
money.
of the bank's money. The Fed also
Of the
has
federal,
what's called
the Federal Reserve's money.
the
'Cause it's
federal
all
funds
Federal
rate.
Reserve money.
The federal funds rate is not about the Federal Reserve's money. The discount rate is about the Federal
All-
Reserve's money.
All the money, all U.S. dollars are federal money, dude.
Okay, yes, but that not all money is on the Federal Reserve's balance sheet. That's what I'm just. The federal
I mean, are
funds
you-
rate is the rate at which
are you-
private banks,
are you-
not the Federal
are you
Reserve, can
talking-
lend to each other.
Are you talking like euros or some shit?
I'm
Because
saying the money in my bank account is not included on the Federal Reserve's balance sheets. Obviously, the Federal Reserve could have printed that money, or maybe a private bank printed that money. But
it was at some point when they lent it out to your bank.
you know, the private sector
to
also
you.
creates money, right? First of all, like not the Fed isn't the only one that controls the money supply. The private banks also create money when they give out loans.
Who else? Well, they got to ask permission from the Federal Reserve
To give out loans.
to give out money. Yeah, because the Fed owns the money.
The Fed doesn't.
They
Fed doesn't own the money.
who else can create money?
Private
Who else
banks.
could just
Private banks can create money when they give out loans.
How did they do that? How does a private bank create money?
Okay, there's two different theories, both of which allow them to create money.
Theories.
Yes, because economists don't agree. Okay, there's the fractional reserve theory, which in this case would mean they
shouldn't there just be like a this is how they do it? Why is there theories?
Because economists can agree on anything. Okay, so either
what's there to agree on though? Like the money comes from somewhere.
Yeah, we don't know.
Do the banks keep it secret?
Well, there actually wasn't any studies on it until 2014. The study that came out in 2014, I don't know. No one wanted to measure it until then. Apparently, the study that came out in 2014, basically sided with the idea that banks can create even more money than other people thought. So there's two different theories that would allow private banks to make money.
How do they create it?
Okay, so either if you buy into the fractional reserve theory, basically it states that banks only have to keep a fraction of their reserves. When they give out loans, they only have to keep a fraction in reserve. Right? So basically, when they grant a loan, if the reserve ratio is 10%, 90% of the money that they loan out is new money.
Where's the new money come from?
It's created out of thin air. If they have $10 in deposits, they can loan out. And the reserve ratio is 10%, and they can loan out like $100 and $90.
Who's authorizing that? Who's giving them permission to create that money? Because as far as I know, you can't just print your own money unless you're the Fed.
Well, banks can.
Unless you're the Fed, you just can't. Because the Fed has a monopoly over all the money. There's no way a bank.
So the Federal Reserve sets the reserve ratio, which determines how many reserves banks have to keep, which has an indirect on the money supply.
Yeah,
but private banks, when they give out loans, create new money.
So it's the Fed. The Fed's creating the money then. The Fed.
Well, it's not the private bank is the one that's creating the money. They just set the reserve ratio, which, depending on who you ask, because economists disagree about this too, it determines how much money private banks can create. But
so it's the Fed
Federal Reserve.
It's the Fed giving them the permission then.
Well, we as a society give Congress and I
think that's an issue. I think that's a problem.
Well, I don't know how you would fix it.
We should figure something out, because the Fed's literally giving permission to banks to fucking make their own shit, man. That's what you're saying.
This is how money creation works. Also, again, depending on who you ask, a lot of economists believe in credit creation theory, which states that banks don't actually need deposits at all to give out loans, which is even crazier. They can just create as much money.
That's an issue. That's just gonna keep fucking adding to the inflation.
But this is how banks have always worked.
Printing money for nothing, then you can't make something out of nothing.
Well, everything is trade-offs, yeah. But we discussed this earlier. Don't you think that quote unquote printing money probably has a trade-off of decreasing unemployment?
No. Really? I think if the dollars was worth more than what it is, you'd see a rise in employment. Because right now people are working, and you buy less with your dollar. The dollar's dying. So if you keep buying less with your money, why not fucking just take the money from welfare or unemployment or some shit? Because
we're gonna run down this one example, and then I need to go back to the interest rate thing.
Yeah, because if inflation keeps rising and shit, and the base pay doesn't increase, what is it? The cost of living right now is $35, and minimum wage is $20 or some shit. It's not gonna be worth fucking working your ass off to get the same amount of money that the government will just give you, So okay, I feel
I want to run down this example really quick. Okay, so if the you would say that a lot of the government spending during COVID probably increased inflation, right? Because we literally gave people stimulus checks. Sure.
Oh,
do you think that also increased their demand?
No, a lot of people put their money in their bank and just kept it.
even with that, you're correct. We have graphs showing this. Excess savings increased a lot during COVID. One, they spent it later. That's actually part of the reason why inflation didn't go up much during Trump's term, was because a lot of people took that money and saved it. And then during Biden's term, when the economy reopened, they started spending that money, and excess savings decreased quite a bit. But one, there's a substitution effect there. Basically, if I have more money in total, I may use this money to pay down my debt, but that means the other money I have can now go towards buying anime pillow woman. I was trying to think of a grotesque example, and that's the most grotesque thing I could think of.
Anime waifu pillow, dude.
Yeah, anime waifu pillows, exactly.
Yeah, get some furry suits and shit, dude.
Yeah, so we can imagine this is probably on net going to increase demand for fursuits, right?
Where's the fursuits being made, though? That's another issue, though, because even if we do have more money, where's all that money going to? You know.
Well, the money's going to the fursuit companies, which then can afford to hire more workers, right? And it can afford to expand its business because there's more demand, so it has to adjust to that.
And it's not here. It's not here. We don't produce shit. We don't produce furry suits. I've checked. No, I'm just kidding. But
we did see unemployment go down, though. We saw unemployment reach like a bottom of like 3.5%, and it slowly has climbed back up to 4.2% because interest rates are high.
That shit would have been an alley-oop if during COVID we gave out the stimulus checks and then brought a lot of the manufacturing back to the United States. That shit would have been a slam fucking dunk, dude. That would have been an alley-oop slam dunk. But that didn't happen. Like, we got our fucking stimmies, and once everything recovered, well, during the lockdowns and shit, a lot of the shit went down to like Amazon and stuff. When it opened up, it went to Walmart and, you know, like cheap places like that. And where did they get their shit from? Yeah, it's not from here, that's for sure. Like, the money, it left the system, and I don't know, if we brought back manufacturing here during COVID times, like when the economy reopened, that shit would have fucking been booming.
Okay, well,
but then again,
and then we gotta get back. Okay, kind of three things. We got to get back to the because I want to talk about why the Fed sets interest rates where it does and why 2% inflation is probably a good thing. Okay, so one, we kind of did do that. Like, I sent 3 graphs. You can see manufacturing employment increase, manufacturing spending, your factory construction increase because of the Chips and Science Act. A lot of money got spent in at-home American manufacturing, specifically for
chips,
specifically for chips and stuff.
That's Navita, dude. Yeah, I know that, dude. I made bank off that for sure, but that's not gonna be enough to sustain the like entire system. Like, you need more than just like Silicon Valley to hold up America and like Hollywood with their culture fucking exports to sustain America and Americans. Like,
I mean, we'll talk about it in a second, but like. Yeah, but U.S. growth has been really, really strong post-COVID. Stronger than like almost any other country. It's strongest of the G7, strongest of any country that did it besides like Ghana, which discovered a big oil field and they're able to just grow off of that. If you can pull up an example of a country that had stronger growth than us, go ahead. Like, that's not that of a developed country, I should say. But
hang on. God, I hate. I wish I had my own Jamie or some shit that would be like, pull this up.
Yeah, I mean, like, real GDP is higher than pre-COVID projections, so it's you know. I have so many graphs I can send of how much.
I mean, I'm not gonna deny that those sectors definitely grew, but I don't attribute that to like being out of inflation or out of COVID with the stimulus and shit. I attribute I attribute that to like
Science Act.
Yeah, I attribute that shit to the rise in fucking AI, dude. Like,
Okay.
That's where the boost came from. It was the rise of AIs, not that like we came out of fucking COVID.
Well, I'm
and
not
shit.
saying the boost was necessarily because of COVID. I'm just saying we did bring back American manufacturing, at least in these industries, while COVID was going on, like you said you want to do. We did do that. That is something that Biden did do.
Yeah,
Most
good.
of it wasn't because of the
that's
COVID
good.
stimulus, although some of it probably was just because a lot of people spent their stimulus checks on tech products because we were all locked inside. It's real. I saw a graph today of like the job openings in the tech industry, and like there's a big spike around 2022, and it goes right back down after the lockdowns all ended. So some of it probably was because of COVID stuff. But the point I was trying to prove there was, one, that we did see a lot of growth in American manufacturing. Secondly, American growth, like just GDP and GDP per capita. GDP per capita might be a bit lower, but has been really, really strong compared to other developed countries.
Okay, yeah. Another point I fucking completely glossed over was that how low did America go, and what's the baseline of growth here? Because if you're saying from COVID we grew a bunch, yeah, it's because everything got unlocked. Everything stopped being locked down. But back to the other point, Sweden, they locked down for a bit, but then they unlocked, as did Pakistan and Bangladesh, and they experienced a steady growth. They didn't. I mean, Sweden got a little dip in the beginning, but then once they unlocked everything, they started growing. So, like, I think what you're attributing to like this growth to is the fact that we went like this straight down, and then like now we're growing back to like the point where
I'm talking
we were
since we recovered, since we reached pre-COVID GDP. First of all, we dipped the least. Like I sent a graph of all the G7 countries that you can see. We dipped pretty much the least, and then we grew. We rebounded fastest, and then since we reached our pre-COVID GDP, we've still been growing fastest. Again, real GDP is higher now than we projected it would be pre-COVID. Before we knew COVID would be an issue, we projected GDP would be at 100 trillion or whatever. It's way more than that, but 100 trillion. And right now we're at 101 trillion. Like we beat pre-COVID projections. We're balling when it comes to real GDP. I think real GDP per capita, we do fare a little bit worse. I think we're still number one out of the developed countries.
Yeah, it says the GDP growth rose 2.5% compared to 2022.
For Sweden, I'm pretty sure we're more than that.
No. I'm saying in America.
Okay.
It's Sweden. I don't know, dude. Let's see Sweden.
I know we can check that. Sweden, real GDP, 6% in 2021, and then it's been like it was negative 0.2% in 2023. It was 0.22% so far in 2024. It was 2.66 in 20. So, U.S. real GDP. I think that's almost all lower.
Sweden was 2.6. We were at 2.5. So they got us by 1%.
Hold on. Link me the thing.
Shit. Hang on. I'm on the fucking. I got the fucking AI shit, dude.
Okay.
Got the fucking AI shit.
I'm trying to find. Okay, I got it. Okay. So,
right, you got it?
In 2021, Sweden beat us by a little bit. In 2022, Sweden beat us by a little bit too. In 2023, though, we beat Sweden by a whole lot. Sweden had negative 0.2% growth, and we had 2.53%. In 2024, Sweden has so far had 0.22%, and we had 2.73%. So I think our cumulative growth is higher than Sweden post-COVID. I know our cumulative growth is higher than the EU post-COVID. The point I was just trying to point out here is I think initially the two things I wanted to prove was that there's probably a trade-off between spending this money and causing some amount of inflation, but also having all this growth and also having unemployment be super low. So we saw unemployment be super low. Unemployment is still pretty low. It's at 4.2%.
Yeah.
And we had all this growth that other countries didn't necessarily have.
Yeah, I won't disagree with you where spending does grow our economy, but the issue I have with that is the reasons for why it grows our economy. Because, like, we're not spending the money on us. Like, a lot of the COVID fund and shit that went out to other countries.
Okay.
And
so this is the second point that we're going to address, and then I got to get back to the interest rate thing. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
It's a petrodollar shit.
You say like, oh, this money goes out of the system or whatever.
Yeah.
If what do you mean? Like, you mean we buy like imports from China? Like, obviously we have a huge trade deficit with China, or what do you mean?
No. I'm talking about the like petrodollar method of ensuring our dollar stays afloat, kind of stuff. Like getting other countries to use our money.
But how does that make U.S. money go out of the system? Is what I'm asking. Like.
What do you mean out of the system?
Well, you said like this money is helping us grow by going out of the system or whatever. Like,
no, I'm saying that we send it to other countries for them to spend it, which strengthens our dollar.
Okay,
so which keeps our dollar afloat, basically. And
I mean, I'm talking about like the stimulus checks and things. That money might go to other countries when people buy goods from other countries, but that's it really.
No, I'm talking about like the government just sending the money over to other countries.
How much do you think we spend on foreign aid? We spend like less than 1% of GDP on foreign aid.
Brother, it's more than 1%, dude.
No, it's not. It's less than 1% of our federal budget, which means it's way less than 1% of GDP. There's no shot. This was in 2019, $39.2 billion for the fiscal year 2019, which is less than 1% of the federal budget. And considering our federal budget is less than our GDP, is way less than 1% of GDP. Although obviously that probably increased with Ukraine.
Hang on. Yeah, no, hang on. In 2020, we spent 3.9 just on Afghanistan, 3.3 Israel, Jordan, 2.5. I don't think that's right, dude.
Of our federal budget or of GDP or in billions of dollars? That might be true. In billions of dollars, that might be true, but like $2 billion is way less than 1% of GDP. Like,
no, it says we spent 3.9 just on Afghanistan alone.
What, $3.9 billion?
Yeah.
That's not in terms of the federal budget and our GDP. That's nothing. That's way less than 1%. 3.9 billion. Shit that. Like,
yeah. Would you? Oh wait. Hang on. That's millions. 3.9 million. Total 25.6 billion.
Total for the whole year, or total for the entire time we were in Afghanistan?
No. Total for all foreign aid in 2020. Was 25.6. So
okay, I guarantee you that's less than 1% of the federal budget.
I'm gonna look up 2023 since
federal budget 2020. The federal deficit. This is just a deficit, not the budget. The budget was 7 trillion. I don't think 25 billion is nothing like that.
Fucking trillion, dude. Holy shit. Yo, dude. This shit's a problem, man. We can't be spending that much, dude. Holy 7 trillion, dude. What the fuck? That's insane. Dude.
Yeah. In 2022, it looks like we did 60 billion in total, adjusted for inflation. So I don't know what dollars these are in. What year dollars these are in? I'm guessing $22.
Holy shit, dude. We spend way more than I thought we did. What the fuck?
Yeah, but
Holy
like even I think you actually mentioned this like earlier in the beginning of the conversation. Like this money that we're quote unquote giving to foreign countries or whatever, a lot of it stays within the U.S. because it's given to military contractors, right? Like when we
Yeah.
give money to Ukraine, we
Th-
really
that-
give
that-
them old
that's-
equipment, and then we buy
Yeah,
new equipment from
yeah,
Lockheed Martin, which supports Lockheed Martin jobs.
That's another issue though. The military industrial complex. I don't like that, dude. I don't like that. Like we're making money just off like wars and shit, and like the way to keep making money is by creating more wars. Like that's an issue. Like I don't want
Okay.
that.
I can understand our issue with that. We can get to that later. But when this money is supposedly going out of our system, one, a lot of it still stays within the U.S., and two, it's a very, very
Yeah, no.
small percentage
Yeah,
of
no,
our budget.
Yeah, I
It's
get
like-
that. No, no, but
It's a drop in the
what more-
bucket.
No,
And then
what-
also,
what-
we probably get returns on investment. Like when we give money to Israel, we get military intelligence that benefits us. So sometimes it's probably going to be a positive ROI on that.
Yeah, no, I don't. I'm not arguing that. Like, there's definitely positives out of it. That's why they fucking keep doing it. But I think in net total, it's more of a negative. You know, like relying on the petrodollar to support the country is it's not a good thing, man. Like, if we're backed by nothing but like other countries using our shit, and now that we got like BRICS and shit, dude, if like. Again, to bring it back to BRICS with China, dude, if China stops using U.S. dollars, and if they, what was it, Saudi Arabia, that like buys most of our shit to sell us back, fucking oil and shit, with U.S. dollars, if they swapped it, like, we're pretty much fucked.
Okay. We can get back to that. We set aside the interest rate conversation earlier. I want to get to the interest rate and the 2% inflation.
I
thing.
mean, the
Okay.
interest rate conversation basically came from us having a conversation about the Fed.
Well, I just want to. The Fed sets 3 different interest rates. Okay, it sets the federal funds rate. The federal funds rate is the rate at which 2 different private banks can lend to each other on an overnight basis. So they set that, and that has downstream effects on all the other interest rates that private banks use, because they can't lend to each other for cheap, then you can't get a loan for very cheap. Secondly, they set the interest on reserves. This is by law the same rate as the federal funds rate. So the interest on reserves is the interest that banks get for keeping deposits at the Fed. So the Federal Reserve says, hey, if you don't lend your money out and you keep it at the Federal Reserve, we will give you 6% interest on it. So that's another way that if they raise the interest rate, then there's going to be less lending because banks are keeping their money at the Fed instead of lending out. They also set the discount rate. The discount rate is the rate at which the banks can get money from the Federal Reserve. It's the rate at which they can take loans out from the Federal Reserve. Again, if they raise that high, it's going to have downstream effects on all the other interest rates. The idea behind this is that raising rates is going to like decrease aggregate demand. It's going to decrease lending. It's going to decrease investment. It's going to decrease all these things, which in turn, the benefit of that is you're going to decrease inflation. The downside of that is you're going to decrease growth. So it's hard to know exactly where the interest rate should be. So part of the reason the Fed targets 2% inflation is because that gives them a little wiggle room that if they raise rates too much, they're not necessarily going to put the economy into a recession because they don't have to keep inflation at 0%. They can keep it at 2%.
Right. So basically the Fed is just altering the interest rate, like screen, whatever the screen of interest
Wow, thanks
rates
for the follow,
is.
Dolphin Zero. Sorry, I'm talking to chat.
Yeah, I know.
We should target
Whatever
nominal
the interest
GDP.
rate, screen, like whatever screen they have that's showing the interest rate, it's in their interest to definitely like what's the word I'm thinking for? Like change it, you know, like alter it, manipulate it.
Yeah.
There's definitely an interest for them to manipulate it. And
Well, that's their whole job is to manipulate interest rates to achieve 2% inflation and maximize employment. That's their dual mandate.
yeah, and that's what I was saying, dude, earlier. Like they're manipulating the interest rates. like just what it is. Like they're changing it and shit. They're changing the calculations and shit because it's in their interest to keep it low. So like they're doing whatever
Well, it's
they
not
need to.
always in their interest to keep it low. Like, it's at
Or
5 point whatever
two-
percent right now.
or-
Or I think it's probably at 4 because they got it by 50 basis points. Probably at 4
Yeah.
point.
Well, yeah,
something.
they're trying to keep. They're just trying to keep it around 2 or whatever you said.
Well, they try to keep inflation at 2%. The way they decrease inflation is by raising interest rates. And again, raising interest rates is probably going to decrease growth. So having 2% inflation, the first thing it does that's good is it allows for more growth, essentially, because interest rates don't have to be so high to keep inflation at 0% that it restricts growth.
Right. Man, honestly, dude, I feel like this shit's just way too fucking complicated. It's a lot more
Okay.
complicated than it should be.
Well, I'll mention
For
the
sure.
second thing, which is that usually it kind of goes along with the paradox of thrift thing I mentioned earlier. We want to give people an incentive to spend money. If there's 0% inflation, or if there's negative inflation,
Yeah, no. I get all that. I'm just saying, like the whole system itself. I feel like it's I don't know. Like if you're trying to like bane a chick or I don't know a dude or something, like you get them like a little confused. Like where they don't really know what's going on. I mean, all right, that's a bad example, but like if you're trying to sell some guy a car or some shit, you like make it too confusing for them to understand, and you kind of make them believe like what you want them to believe, and then once they believe that, then you could like once they believe what you're saying is good, then you could sell them the shit car, and that's really what I think the whole like monetary system that we're on is a shit car that's like running out of gas, or like the fucking transmission's about to go. It definitely is.
Well, okay. I do eventually have to get through the other stuff I have to do today. What do you think would a better monetary system be? Like,
I don't know. Like, the best thing I could think, and it's not going to be a good one, is going to be like going back on a gold standard or something, but I know that's not going to be a good one. I don't know. We just need money backed by something rather than debt, and rather than violence, because that is what our currency is currently backed by. It's violence towards like other nations and shit. Because once they stop using our monetary system, like, what are we backed by? Nothing. So like, we need a backing on our monetary system, and I don't know if I don't know, maybe if it's backed by like into like I don't know, fucking research or some shit, like do some Bitcoin kind of shit with that, like Bitcoin's backed by like solving equations, like that's more feasible than like being backed by gold. But we need a backing on our currency that we don't have. Like we're just I don't know, we're just throwing paper in the wind, and it's kind of disappearing, so we got to keep throwing more paper in the wind so that there's paper in the wind, but I don't know, if we had like a fucking wall or some shit that we could blow the paper on, then we got a ton of paper. But yeah, I don't know. Basically, we just need a backing for our currency is my point. But
yeah. Okay, well, I'll
yeah,
give you the last word, but I do have to milk my YouTube React content at some point, bro. So I appreciate the conversation. I mean, if you want to chat more later, we definitely can.
all right. Yeah. I gotta go too, dude. It's fucking late as shit. I gotta be up in a few hours.
Yeah.
Definitely went a little longer than I was expecting.
In the future,
right,
you can leave at any time, okay? Like, don't feel pressured to stay or anything if you don't want to ever. But
I was invested in the conversation for sure.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'll hit you up at some time if you're streaming or something. I'll check your shit and see what else we could talk about. But yeah, definitely gotta head out.
Okay, thank you.
All right, yeah, you have a good one, brother.
You too, brother.